At her best friend's lavish wedding, Seraphina Monroe froze. The man waiting at the altar was no stranger. He was the billionaire who once shattered her heart, and he was also the man who had unknowingly left her with the gift she carried for life, her son, now standing beside her, clinging tightly to her hand. Crystal lights blazed above. Music floated gracefully through the hall. Guests all around smiled with joy and blessings. But for Seraphina, it felt as if her heart had stopped. Her little boy looked up and whispered, "Mom, why does that man keep staring at us?" His clear gray eyes were the exact reflection of the man at the altar. In that instant, Seraphina realized the secret she had buried for 9 long years might explode here, in front of everyone. The bride smiled proudly, holding onto her perfect fiancé's arm. But Seraphina knew that with just one glance, one careless word, at least one life would be shattered before this night was over. If it were you, would you stay silent or reveal everything? Stay with this story, because this is only the beginning. Seraphina's body froze. Her hands trembled as she pulled her son closer. Evan leaned against her, sensing something was wrong but not knowing why. A voice rang out across the hall, bright, cheerful, filled with pride. Genevieve Hart, glowing in her white gown, walked forward. She raised her hand toward the groom. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my fiancé, Thaddeus Lockhart." The name cut through the room like glass. Sarah's heart dropped into her stomach. Her legs felt weak, as if the floor might give way. All around them, guests clapped, smiling, unaware. To them, it was a beautiful announcement, a perfect couple. To Sarah, it was a cruel twist of fate. The chandeliers above seemed to spin. The music swelled too loud, then too soft. She could barely hear anything except the pounding of her heart. Evan tugged at her sleeve, whispering, "Mom, are you okay?" She forced a smile that never reached her eyes. The past had just walked into the present, and it was standing at the altar with her best friend. The story shifts back. Days earlier, life had been simple. A knock at the door, a delivery. Sarah opened it to find a cream envelope with golden letters, her name written in Genevieve's familiar hand. She sat at the kitchen table, Evan bouncing beside her. Inside, a wedding invitation shimmered. "The honor of your presence." It was elegant, extravagant. A handwritten note slipped out with it. "Sarah, it would mean the world to me if you came. Please don't say no." Evan's eyes widened. "A wedding? Do they have cake?" His voice was pure excitement. He pressed his face to the invitation, pretending to smell it. Sarah managed a smile, but inside her chest tightened. A wedding meant memories. A wedding meant facing a world she had left behind. She folded the invitation carefully, as if it might cut her fingers. The edges gleamed under the kitchen light. That night, long after Evan fell asleep, she stared at the card again. The handwriting, the promise, the past knocking at her door. Back then, things were different. Sarah and Genevieve had once been inseparable. 2 young women chasing dreams, studying side by side, laughing through nights of ramen and textbooks. They swore nothing would come between them. But life has its own plans. Genevieve rose quickly, climbing her way into a shining career. Sarah's path was cut short, a love affair, a pregnancy she never planned. And then, silence. She vanished without goodbye. No explanations, no calls, no more letters. To Genevieve, it must have felt like betrayal. To Sarah, it was survival. The memories came rushing back as she turned the invitation over in her hands. The woman in the white dress was not just a bride. She was a piece of Sarah's own lost youth. Evan's laughter drifted from the other room. The sound brought her back to the present. She had built a new life. Simple. Quiet. Just her and her boy. But the invitation threatened to tear the silence wide open. And behind that door waited not only a friend, but a past Sarah was never ready to face. The kitchen was dark. Only the glow of a small lamp lit the room. Sarah sat with a half-finished glass of wine. The invitation lay in front of her, daring her to decide. She lifted it again. Her eyes caught the last line, written by Genevieve's hand. "All expenses covered. Please come." The letters trembled slightly, as if written in haste, or maybe in fear. Her fingers brushed over the ink. Was it guilt? Was it longing? Or simply duty? She couldn't tell. From the hallway, Evan peeked in. "Are we going, Mom? I want to see the cake. I want to see the dancing." His voice was eager, innocent. Sarah forced a smile, but her chest ached. To go meant stepping back into a world of pain. To stay meant closing the door on a friendship forever. She set the glass down. The wine rippled. Outside, the night was silent, waiting for her choice. She whispered to herself, "Do I face it, or do I run again?" Her eyes lifted from the invitation to the living room. Evan's laughter echoed as he built towers with his blocks. His joy filled the small space. Yet his face, his eyes, reminded her of a truth she could never escape. Morning light filled the small apartment. Evan sat at the table, hair messy, eyes bright. He was only 8, yet his curiosity never rested. He leaned over his cereal bowl and asked, "Will I ever meet my dad?" The question hit Sarah like a knife. She turned away, hiding her face behind the coffee cup. Her throat tightened. Evan tilted his head, waiting. His eyes, clear gray, sharp and alive, searched hers. The same gray she once fell in love with. The same eyes that had once stared at her in another man's face. She reached over, brushing his hair back. "You already have everything you need," she whispered. But even she didn't believe her own words. Evan smiled, undisturbed, and began to chatter about school, space, and the stars. He spoke about planets as if they were his friends. Sarah listened, her heart aching. Every word reminded her of the man she once loved. Every laugh reminded her that the past still lived in her son's smile. The boy was his father's mirror, and Sarah knew the truth could not be hidden forever. The days moved quickly. A suitcase stood open on the bed. Clothes folded, shoes stacked. Evan darted around, choosing his favorite shirts. "Don't forget my telescope!" he shouted, holding up the small instrument like treasure. His face glowed. "I want to see the stars over the mountains." Sarah forced a smile, folding another dress into the case. Her hands shook as she smoothed the fabric. Each shirt, each pair of socks felt like a countdown. A step closer to the past, she feared. Evan zipped his backpack, laughing. "This will be the best trip ever." His voice carried no weight, only excitement. But Sarah's chest was heavy. Something gnawed inside her. A whisper she couldn't name. A warning she couldn't quiet. She walked through the apartment one last time, turned off the lights, locked the door. The sound echoed in her ears, a sound like finality. This wasn't just a trip. She felt it deep down. It was a return to everything she had tried to leave behind. The road wound through the mountains, sharp curves hugging the cliffs. Evan pressed his face to the window, pointing at every sight. "Look! A bear!" His laughter filled the car, light and free. He waved at the trees, the rivers, the endless sky. Sarah gripped the wheel, her knuckles pale. The beauty of Lake Tahoe stretched before them, vast and sparkling. To Evan, it was magic. To her, it was a mirror of everything unsettled inside. The closer they came, the more the mountains seemed to close in. Her stomach tightened. Her hands grew damp. "Mom, it's like a fairy tale!" Evan shouted. His joy was boundless. She glanced at him, a small smile tugging at her lips. For him, she had to be strong. Yet, as the resort appeared in the distance, grand, white, rising above the lake, her heart sank. The world she had once belonged to was waiting, and with every mile, the past grew nearer. The car rolled to a stop. A manager in a tailored suit stepped forward, smiling wide. "Ms. Monroe, welcome. We've prepared everything for you and your son." Evan jumped out first, eyes wide. "Wow, Mom, it's huge!" His voice echoed off marble pillars. They were led through polished halls to a private cabin. The air smelled of pine and fresh linen. It felt too perfect, too prepared. Evan rushed into his room. His eyes lit up. The walls were painted with constellations. A telescope stood by the window, pointing at the night sky. His laughter filled the cabin. "Mom, they knew I loved space." Sarah paused in the doorway. Her chest tightened. The detail was too precise, too personal. She smiled at Evan, but unease coiled inside her. Why would anyone think of this? Who had arranged it? The boy spun in circles, already lost in wonder. But Sarah stood still, her heart whispering a truth she wasn't ready to face. The welcome felt like kindness. Yet, beneath it lay a question she couldn't shake. The wedding coordinator smiled as she handed Sarah the schedule. Mr. Lockhart insisted on every detail himself. He wanted every guest to feel at home. The name hit like thunder. Lockhart. Sarah froze. Her voice barely steady, she asked, "What's his full name?" "Thaddeus Lockhart," the woman replied brightly. "The founder of Lockhart Innovations. Quite the visionary." The world tilted beneath Sarah. Her breath caught. Thaddeus Lockhart. Her Thaddeus. The man who once held her heart. The man who had never known about Evan. She swallowed hard, forcing a polite nod, but her hands trembled on the doorknob. In the next room, Evan unpacked a telescope left on his bed. His delighted laugh echoed sharp against the silence in her chest. The universe had played a cruel trick. She had come for a friend's wedding, and instead, she stood at the edge of a truth she had fought to bury for 9 years. Her son's father was here. Not a memory, not a ghost. Real. Alive. Waiting on the other side of the door. And tomorrow, he would marry her best friend. The cabin glowed warm with lantern light, yet Sarah felt trapped in shadows. She paced the living room, her pulse racing. Leave now, or stay. Her mind screamed to run, to pack Evan's bag, claim an emergency, vanish before Thaddeus ever saw them, but her body stayed rooted, paralyzed by the collision of past and present. From the bedroom, Evan's voice rang out. "Mom, look! A NASA t-shirt, and a book about stars!" He burst into the room, grinning, arms full of gifts. His eyes, Thaddeus's eyes, sparkled with joy. "This place is amazing." Sarah forced a smile. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." But inside, a storm raged. Could she protect him from the truth forever? Or was the lie already collapsing? Outside, the lake shimmered under the setting sun, serene and unbothered. Birds skimmed the surface, and laughter drifted from the pavilion where preparations had begun. The contrast made her chest ache. Evan lived in innocence, a world of stars and simple joys. She lived in dread, each moment ticking closer to the moment of recognition. Her hands tightened around the book he'd handed her. She couldn't stop trembling. The pavilion sparkled with golden lights. Guests mingled, glasses of champagne glinting. Evan tugged Sarah's hand, wide-eyed at the sight of musicians, food, and endless laughter. "Mom, do they have cake yet?" he whispered, his tone full of awe. Before she could answer, a familiar voice called out, "Sarah!" Genevieve swept through the crowd, radiant in a champagne-colored dress, curls pinned in elegant waves. She embraced Sarah tightly, her perfume stirring memories of late nights in their college apartment. "I can't believe you came," Genevieve beamed. "It means everything to me." Her gaze shifted to Evan. "And this must be your son." Evan straightened like a young gentleman. "Nice to meet you. Congratulations on your wedding." Genevieve knelt, charmed. Polite and handsome. "He looks so much like you." Sarah's stomach twisted at the irony. Every guest laughed and drank, unaware of the truth standing between them. Evan drifted toward the children's table, leaving the women alone. Genevieve slipped her arm through Sarah's. "Come, let me show you everything. You'll love the surprises we've planned." Sarah smiled, but inside, every step felt like walking deeper into a trap. The two women stood by the edge of the terrace overlooking the lake as twilight deepened. Music swelled behind them, muffling the quiet tension. Genevieve sipped her drink, then turned, eyes sharp but her tone casual. "And his father? Not in the picture?" Sarah froze. Her chest tightened. She steadied her glass before answering. "No, he doesn't know." The words fell heavy, more confession than explanation. Genevieve tilted her head, studying her with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Really?" Sarah's throat burned. She wanted to change the subject, to hide behind small talk, but Genevieve's gaze pinned her in place. It was the same gaze she'd used in college when prying out Sarah's secrets, playful yet relentless. The music swelled with laughter, but for Sarah the night grew cold. She tightened her shawl, wishing the ground would open and swallow her whole. Genevieve's smile lingered, enigmatic, unreadable. Then she raised her glass in a quiet toast. "To old friends and new beginnings." Sarah clinked glasses, forcing her lips into a curve, but her pulse thundered, because she knew, tomorrow, the past would catch her. The music shifted. A wave of applause rose from the crowd. Guests turned toward the grand staircase as the groom appeared. Thaddeus Lockhart descended with slow, measured steps. Tall, composed, a man used to owning every room he entered. His tuxedo gleamed under the lights. His presence silenced whispers. Sarah's breath caught. Her chest tightened as if bound by iron. Then it happened. Their eyes met. For a moment, sound vanished. The laughter, the music, the clinking glasses, all gone. The world held its breath. His gaze locked on hers. Shock flickered, followed by recognition, disbelief, and something deeper. Memories he thought buried now alive in her face. Sarah's knees weakened. She clutched the railing, praying Evan would not notice her shaking hands. Around them, guests cheered, oblivious to the storm brewing in silence. Thaddeus faltered for the briefest second. To anyone else it was nothing, but to her it was everything. 9 years of distance collapsed in a single glance. Genevieve's voice broke the tension. She raised her glass, her smile bright. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I present my fiancé, Thaddeus Lockhart." Applause filled the hall again, but Thaddeus did not move. His eyes were still locked on Sarah. He stepped closer, his voice unsteady, almost a whisper, yet audible enough. "Sarah?" The name slipped into the air like a secret. Sarah's face drained of color. Her lips parted, but no words came. The silence that followed pressed heavy on the room. It was brief, but sharp, like glass-cutting skin. A stillness only broken by Evan's laughter somewhere near the dessert table. Genevieve, unaware, clung to his arm, beaming at the guests. But Thaddeus stood frozen, the past roaring back in one word. Every detail in Sarah's face screamed of the woman he had once loved. Every second stretched longer, as if the world itself paused to watch them. A sudden sound broke the silence. Small footsteps racing across polished floors. "Mom!" Evan's voice rang clear as he ran toward her, holding a cookie in his hand. He wrapped his arms around her waist. His gray eyes sparkled as he looked up. "This place is amazing." Thaddeus turned. His breath caught in his chest. The boy's face, the hair, the eyes, his eyes. The recognition struck like lightning. Every doubt, every possibility, every unspoken fear landed at once. Sarah tightened her hold on Evan, her body a shield. She avoided Thaddeus's stare, but it was too late. Thaddeus's hand trembled as he set down his glass. He could not look away. The boy was his reflection, the answer to questions he had never asked. Guests cheered again as music swelled, unaware of the storm that had just cracked open. Inside Thaddeus's chest, truth burned, and it demanded answers. The reception ended with music and laughter, but Sarah carried none of it back to her cabin. She tucked Evan into bed. His breathing steadied, soft and innocent, untouched by the weight pressing down on her heart. Alone in the quiet, she sat on the edge of the bed staring at the dark window. Her reflection looked pale, almost unrecognizable. The knock came suddenly, firm, unrelenting. Her body stiffened. She rose slowly, every step heavy. Another knock, stronger. She opened the door. Thaddeus stood there, shadows lining his face. His eyes blazed with questions, with pain, with recognition he could not deny. "Sarah," he said, voice low but sharp, "we need to talk." The night air rushed in around them. Evan stirred in the bedroom but did not wake. Sarah gripped the doorframe, torn between slamming it shut and letting the past walk in. Her silence was the only answer, and so the conversation that would change everything began. The door shut behind them. Silence pressed in. Only the sound of Evan's steady breathing filled the cabin. Thaddeus stood in the center of the room. His hands shook. His voice cracked as he whispered, "He's mine, isn't he?" Sarah's lips trembled. She wanted to deny it, to hide, to protect the fragile wall she had built for 9 years. But the truth burned too heavy. She nodded. The air left Thaddeus's chest in a broken gasp. He staggered back, one hand to his mouth. His eyes filled with tears he could no longer hold. "You kept him from me," he whispered, grief flooding every word. "All these years." Sarah turned away, her own tears streaming. "I did what I had to do." The distance between them was only a few feet, but it felt like a canyon. The weight of 9 silent years pressed down, suffocating both. For Thaddeus, it was a revelation. For Sarah, it was a wound reopened. And for Evan, asleep in the next room, it was the beginning of a truth he would soon discover. The words poured out, jagged, bitter. Thaddeus paced the floor, pain sharpening his tone. "You vanished. No call. No letter. Nothing. I thought you left me." Sarah shook her head, her voice breaking. "You knew, Thad. You had to know. I thought you just didn't care." Their eyes collided, anger and grief tangled. Thaddeus's fists clenched. "I waited. I checked every message. Nothing came. Do you understand? I thought you chose to disappear." Sarah's chest heaved. "I emailed you. I wrote everything, the pregnancy, the fear, and you never answered. I cried for weeks, waiting." The silence stretched. Thaddeus blinked, confusion dawning. "Email?" His face twisted, realization hitting. "The company server. I changed addresses. The old account." Her breath caught. The room spun. "You never saw it?" His voice cracked. "Not one word." The fury melted into despair. 2 lives destroyed by a single gap, a glitch, a cruel accident. 9 years stolen, not by choice, but by silence. And now the truth stood raw between them. A soft creak. The bedroom door opened. Evan rubbed his eyes, holding his blanket, hair sticking up in every direction. "Mom?" he asked sleepily. Then his gaze drifted to Thaddeus. He frowned. "Who are you?" Sarah froze. Thaddeus stood motionless, his heart hammering. The boy's eyes narrowed, studying his face. The resemblance was undeniable. Finally, the words slipped out, innocent and sharp. "Are you my dad?" The room cracked open. Sarah covered her mouth, tears spilling. Thaddeus bent down slowly, his knees hitting the carpet. His eyes locked on his son's. His throat tightened. "Yes, I'm your dad." Evan blinked, stunned. His small hands gripped the blanket tighter. No one spoke. The silence was fragile, trembling. For the first time, father and son stood face to face. It was the moment that shattered everything, and the moment that began to heal. Thaddeus reached out but stopped short, afraid to push. His voice trembled. If I had known about you, I would never have left, not for a single day." Evan shifted, uncertain. His eyes darted to his mother, searching for truth. Sarah nodded slowly, tears running down her cheeks. "He didn't know, sweetheart. He never knew." The boy's shoulders softened. Still, hesitation lingered. He whispered, "Why now?" Thaddeus swallowed hard. "Because now I have the chance to do what I should have done from the start. To be your father, if you'll let me." The words hung heavy, trembling in the air. Evan studied him, torn between fear and longing. Then, for the first time, his eyes softened. A small step forward. Not a hug. Not yet, but enough. Hope flickered between them, fragile but real. Thaddeus's hand lowered to the floor. He didn't rush, didn't demand. He only waited. And in that stillness, a seed of trust was planted. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the resort. Genevieve entered the cabin, her smile bright but eyes sharp. She had noticed Thaddeus's absence the night before. She froze when she saw him standing near Sarah, the boy between them. "Thaddeus?" Her voice cut the air. He turned, pale, shaken. "Genevieve, I need to tell you something." Her gaze swept from him to Evan, then back again. The silence was its own confession. "Please," Thaddeus whispered. "I didn't know. He's my son. I only found out last night." The glass slipped from Genevieve's hand, shattering on the floor. Her chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. "So," her voice trembled, then hardened. "All this time, I was always second." Sarah lowered her head, shame pressing heavy. Evan clung to her side, confused. Guests laughed outside, music drifting in, but inside the cabin the air was tight, heavy with betrayal. Genevieve's face crumpled, but she forced her chin high. Pride kept her standing. But her eyes burned with fire. The triangle had broken, and nothing could be put back the same way again. The room was silent, the pieces of glass still glittering on the floor. Genevieve's breath hitched, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried both pain and steel. "You think I don't know what it's like to lose?" she said. "I've spent years in doctors' offices, pills, injections, endless tests. They told me I'd never carry a child." Her hands shook as she pressed them to her chest. "Do you know what it feels like to sit at baby showers? To smile while your insides collapse? To pretend it doesn't matter?" Sarah's eyes filled. She had never known. She whispered, "Genevieve." But Genevieve stepped back, her face a mask of anguish. "And then you show up, with him, with his child. The one thing I could never give." Her voice cracked, raw and sharp. "Don't you see? This wedding was my chance, my only chance to feel whole." Tears streaked her face, but her chin lifted again, fighting for dignity. Thaddeus's shoulders sagged. He reached for her, but she recoiled, her heart torn between envy, grief, and the pride that refused to let her break in front of them. Later that evening, Sarah found Genevieve alone on the terrace. The lake reflected the stars, silent witness to a friendship unraveling. Genevieve didn't turn when Sarah approached, her voice cut through the night. "Did you come here to take him back?" The words stung like ice. Sarah's voice cracked. "No, I never knew he was here. I never planned this." Genevieve turned, her eyes red but blazing. "But he looked at you like he had never stopped. Do you know what that does to me?" Sarah's chest tightened. "I didn't come to hurt you. I came because you asked me. Because you're still my friend." The word friend hung heavy, broken, almost mocking. Genevieve's lips trembled. "Friends don't bring secrets like this to a wedding," Sarah whispered. "I carried that secret alone. For 9 years. Not to betray you, but to survive. The two women stood facing each other, shadows of what they once were. Their bond cracked, but in Genevieve's eyes a flicker of something softer passed. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the faintest trace of understanding. The night had not ended when Evan's cry shattered the silence. Sarah rushed to his side. He sat on the bed, clutching his chest, his small body trembling. "Mom, it hurts," he whispered. Thaddeus was there in an instant, fear slicing through him. "What's wrong?" The doctor at the resort was summoned. After a quick check, his face grew serious. "There are signs of a connective tissue disorder. It could be EDS. He needs proper tests, and soon." The words hung heavy, heavier than betrayal, heavier than pride. This was life itself at stake. Sarah held Evan close, tears streaming. Thaddeus gripped the doctor's arm. "What do we need to do?" The answer was clear. The boy needed both parents. He needed the father's history, his blood, his presence. Suddenly, everything shifted. The fights, the jealousy, the past, it all fell away in the face of one truth. This was no longer about old wounds. It was about Evan's right to live. And that truth bound them together, whether they wanted it or not. The ballroom glittered with lights. Guests laughed, glasses clinked. But when Genevieve walked onto the stage, silence fell. Her hands shook, but her voice was clear. "There's been a change." She glanced at Thaddeus, then at Sarah, then at the boy who carried all their faces. "This wedding will not happen today." Gasps rippled through the crowd. She steadied herself, chin high. "Not canceled. Postponed. Until the truth can settle. Until hearts can breathe again." The words stunned the room. Some guests whispered in shock. Others sat frozen, holding their glasses mid-air. Thaddeus lowered his head, shame weighing him down. Sarah's eyes filled, torn between guilt and gratitude. Evan squeezed his mother's hand, confused but calm. Genevieve stepped back, her smile faint but proud. "Love is not about the perfect picture," she said. "It's about truth. And today, truth demands its place." The hall erupted, not in cheers, not in applause, but in stunned silence. The fairy tale wedding had shattered, but in its place, something more raw and real had begun. What was meant to be a wedding turned into something else. The orchestra played softer. The candles still flickered. Guests remained, not knowing whether to stay or leave. Then Genevieve lifted her glass. "Tonight is not the night for vows," she said. "It is the night to honor what makes us human. Truth, family, resilience." Her voice wavered, but the room listened. Thaddeus joined her, his hand resting briefly on her shoulder before falling back to his side. "Genevieve deserves more than a half-truth, and my son deserves all of me." Eyes turned to Evan, who stood by Sarah, clutching her hand. The boy shifted nervously, not understanding all of it, but feeling the weight. One by one, guests began to raise their glasses, not for a marriage, but for a story that had unraveled in front of them. The toasts rang with mixed emotions, confusion, sorrow, but also respect. The celebration had changed shape. It was no longer about a perfect beginning. It was about surviving brokenness and still standing tall. And in that strange moment, the hall felt heavier, yet somehow more honest than before. Later that night, music softened. Guests drifted away. Only family remained. Evan tugged on his mother's sleeve. His eyes lifted, nervous but steady. He looked past her to the man who had watched him with tears all evening. He swallowed, then whispered, "Dad." The single word cracked open the silence. Thaddeus dropped to his knees, tears spilling freely. He pulled the boy into his arms, holding him as if making up for every year lost. Sarah stood near, her chest tight, hands trembling. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but never like this. Evan buried his face in his father's shoulder. Thaddeus held him tighter, whispering, "I'm here now. I'll never let you go." For the first time in years, Sarah let herself cry without restraint. Not from fear, not from guilt, but from the raw weight of love. The room, once built for spectacle, now witnessed something far more profound. Not a wedding, not a vow, but a father and son finding each other at last. The following days blurred. Guests left with stories they would whisper for years. Genevieve packed her things quietly. She embraced Sarah once, not with warmth, but with the dignity of closure. "I need distance," she said. "Europe will give me that." Her eyes softened for a moment. "Take care of him." Then she was gone. Thaddeus stayed, Not as a groom, not as a CEO, but as a father. He sat with Evan through meals, read to him at night, learned his laugh, his quirks. Sarah watched, her heart torn between relief and fear. Could this last? Could she trust him now after so many years apart? One evening, as Evan slept, Thaddeus turned to her. "I can't change the years I missed, but I can promise you this. I'll be here every day from now on." She didn't answer right away. She simply nodded, her gaze drifting to the boy sleeping peacefully. The future was unclear, but for the first time in years, the weight in her chest had lifted. Evan stirred in his sleep, murmuring the word "Dad" once more, as if holding on to it even in his dreams. And in that fragile moment, hope quietly returned. Hope. A word whispered by a child in his sleep, a word strong enough to bind a fractured family, yet fragile enough to be broken again. The story had shifted. Secrets revealed. A father reclaimed. A child no longer alone. For the first time in 9 years, Serafina let herself breathe. Evan's laughter filled the cabin as dawn touched the lake. He had called Thaddeus Dad, a word that changed everything. Yet not all wounds had healed. Genevieve walked away, pride hiding her pain. Across the ocean, her story was far from over, and Evan's faint symptoms lingered, a shadow that could not be ignored. The truth had brought them together, but the future would test how strong that truth really was. What do you think comes next? Will Thaddeus truly step into fatherhood? Will Genevieve return? And what about Evan's health? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll be here when the next chapter arrives, because this story isn't finished. This is only the beginning.
Everyone in shock as her son walked to the millionaire CEO in a restaurant and called him Daddy. The restaurant fell silent as silverware halted mid-air. Hushed conversations died instantly. All eyes turned to watch the small boy with copper curls weave confidently between white-clothed tables toward the most powerful man in the room. "Daddy." The child's voice rang clear and bright through the elegant space. "It's you, the man from Mommy's treasure box. Have you ever experienced a single moment when your carefully constructed world shattered completely? When a secret you've protected for years suddenly explodes in the most public way possible? For Olivia Reed, that moment arrived without warning as her 4-year-old son Leo slipped from her, grasped and raced across the Meridian's polished floor toward tech billionaire Gabriel Davenport. Family, like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss a single of these touching stories I share to you every day. "Leo, come back here." Olivia's desperate whisper carried farther than intended as she rose from her chair, investor portfolios forgotten. Her heart pounded so violently she felt lightheaded. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not now. Gabriel Davenport looked up from his business dinner, confusion flickering across his face as the small boy reached his table. His expression shifted from polite puzzlement to stunned recognition as his eyes, the exact same shade of hazel as the child's, moved from Leo to where Olivia stood frozen between tables. "You look just like your picture," Leo continued, unaware of the tension electrifying the air around him. "Mommy keeps it in her special box with the letters she never mails." The crystal wineglass in Gabriel's hand trembled slightly before he set it down with deliberate care. "Olivia?" Her name escaped him like a prayer, barely audible yet somehow filling the entire restaurant. Conversations around them resumed in urgent whispers. Phones discreetly captured the moment. By tomorrow, this scene would dominate social media. Tech mogul Gabriel Davenport confronted by a child claiming to be his son, a child he clearly knew nothing about. Olivia moved forward on unsteady legs, her carefully applied lipstick now bitten away, her prepared investor pitch forgotten. The sea of elegant dresses and tailored suits blurred around her as she approached. The table where her past and present collided catastrophically. "I'm so sorry," she managed, reaching for Leo's hand. "He's just confused. We should go." But Gabriel's gaze had locked onto Leo's face, cataloging the features with growing realization, the shape of his nose, the set of his jaw, the distinctive arch of his eyebrows. Features that mirrored his own. "Is he?" Gabriel's voice dropped to a whisper, the question hanging incomplete between them. "Is this my son?" If you've ever wondered how a single question can change everything, stay with me. This story of secrets, missed chances, and unexpected redemption might just change how you think about forgiveness and second chances. Hit like and subscribe if you believe everyone deserves the opportunity to make things right, even after years of separation. 3 hours earlier, Olivia had stood before her bathroom mirror, applying a final touch of lipstick with trembling hands. Her reflection showed a woman on the edge of something important, auburn hair swept into a professional. Updo, emerald dress striking against her fair skin, eyes bright with equal parts hope and anxiety. This dinner meeting wasn't just another networking event. After 4 years of working from her dining room table while raising Leo, alone, Olivia's architectural firm finally had a shot at real investment. Kensington Partners had reviewed her sustainable hoe using designs and expressed interest. Tonight could change everything for her and Leo. "Mama, do I look handsome?" Leo appeared in the doorway, proudly displaying his little navy blazer and neatly combed copper curls. Despite her nerves, Olivia's heart melted at the sight. "The handsomest," she confirmed, kneeling to straighten his collar. His hazel eyes, so achingly familiar, sparkled with excitement. "Remember our restaurant rules? Sit nice, use my quiet voice, and no wandering," he recited solemnly, counting each rule on small fingers. "And if I'm super good, maybe chocolate dessert?" "Maybe," she laughed, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "Now let's not keep Mrs. Harlow waiting." Their elderly neighbor had agreed to accompany them as extra support, a kindly presence to help entertain Leo while Olivia focused on her presentation. She'd considered leaving him home with a sitter, but after a month of recurrent ear infections, she couldn't bear to be separated if he needed her. "You look lovely, dear," Mrs. Harlow commented as they gathered their things. "Those investors won't know what hit them." Olivia smiled gratefully, though anxiety fluttered beneath her ribs. "Thank you for coming with us. I wouldn't normally bring Leo to something like this, but—" "Nonsense." Mrs. Harlow waved away her concerns. "The boy deserves a nice evening out after being cooped up sick. Besides, what kind of monster wouldn't be charmed by that face?" Olivia hadn't planned on the Meridian for her investor meeting. The upscale restaurant was far beyond her budget, but Walter Kensington had insisted. "My treat," he'd said. "Best filet in town." What she couldn't have known was that the Meridian was also a favored business dinner location for Gabriel Davenport, whose company headquarters towered just 3 blocks away. In a city of millions, their paths had never crossed in 4 years. Tonight, fate had other plans. As they entered the restaurant's elegant foyer, Olivia's grip tightened on Leo's hand. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over cream walls and mahogany accents. A pianist played softly in the corner. The maitre d' greeted them with practiced warmth. "Reed, party of 3, Olivia said. "We're meeting Mr. Kensington." "Of course, Miss Reed. Mr. Kensington has already arrived. Please follow me." As they weaved through the dining room, Olivia remained blissfully unaware of Gabriel seated in the far corner with his executive team. She focused instead on Walter Kensington, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, rising to greet her with evaluation in his eyes. "Miss Reed, finally we meet in person." His handshake was firm, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "And who do we have here?" "This is my son, Leo," Olivia introduced him, "and our neighbor, Mrs. Harlow." Leo extended his small hand, just as Olivia had taught him. "Pleased to meet you, sir." Kensington's eyebrows rose slightly. "Quite the little gentleman. I wasn't aware children would be joining us." The slight disapproval in his tone made Olivia's stomach tighten. "I apologize for not mentioning it. Leo's been recovering from an illness, and I preferred to keep him with me tonight." "No matter," Kensington gestured dismissively. "We're here to discuss your rather unusual approach to affordable housing, not family arrangements." The comment stung, but Olivia maintained her professional smile as they settled at the table. Mrs. Harlow immediately engaged Leo with crayons and paper sheet, thoughtfully brought along, allowing Olivia to open her portfolio. "As you can see from these preliminary designs, the modular approach allows for significant cost reduction while maintaining aesthetic appeal and environmental sustainability." Kensington nodded, examining her drawings with a critical eye. 2 colleagues joined them, introducing themselves as partners in the investment firm. Questions followed, pointed, challenging, occasionally condescending. Olivia answered each with calm confidence, even as doubt crept into her thoughts. These men didn't see her vision. They saw numbers, return rates, market viability, not the families who deserved beautiful, affordable homes, not the communities that could transform with thoughtful design. Still, she needed their investment, so she persisted, adjusting her pitch to emphasize profit potential. Meanwhile, across the restaurant, Gabriel Davenport concluded a successful negotiation. At 36, he commanded attention without effort. Dark hair now threaded with distinguished silver at the temples, lean frame, perfectly suited in charcoal gray, presence radiating the quiet confidence of a man who had built an empire from nothing. "Excellent work, everyone," he told his team. "I think we've earned a celebration. Another round?" As champagne was ordered, Gabriel allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. Prism Innovations had just secured a partnership that would expand their sustainable technology initiatives globally. The board would be pleased. Shareholders would see increased value. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Yet beneath the professional triumph, an emptiness lingered, one he'd grown accustomed to but never comfortable with. Success tasted hollow when experienced alone. Back at Olivia's table, Leo grew restless despite Mrs. Harlow's efforts. The crayons had lost their appeal, and the adult conversation droned on endlessly. His curious eyes wandered the restaurant, observing the elegant patrons, the busy servers, the flickering candles. And then he saw him. Across the room sat the man from his mother's secret box, the same face that smiled from photographs hidden on the top shelf of her closet, the man she sometimes looked at when she thought Leo was asleep, her fingers tracing the image with sad eyes. His daddy. Leo had always wondered about his father. Unlike other children with two parents or clear explanations of their absence, his questions about Daddy were met with vague stories about an important man doing important work far away. Sometimes when he pressed, his mother would show him videos of a tall man talking about computers and helping communities. "That's your father," she'd say softly. "He builds technology that helps people around the world." But she never explained why he never visited, never called, never seemed to know about Leo at all. In his 4-year-old mind, seeing his father now could only mean one thing. He had finally come back for them. Excitement bubbled through Leo's small body. While the adults remained absorbed in their business discussion and Mrs. Harlow momentarily distracted by a waiter's question, he saw his chance. He slipped from his chair and darted between tables with the single-minded determination only children possess. And so it happened, the moment that would change everything, when Leo reached Gabriel's table and uttered the word that froze time. "Daddy." The private dining room Gabriel had secured felt suffocating despite its generous proportions. Leo was happily occupied with chocolate cake at a corner table where Mrs. Harlow gently supervised, while Olivia sat rigidly across from Gabriel, her hands wrapped around a teacup she couldn't bring herself to drink. 4 years, Gabriel said finally, breaking the heavy silence. "He's 4 years old." 4.5, Olivia corrected automatically, then winced at how petty it sounded. Gabriel's penetrating gaze never left her face. "Which means you were pregnant when you left?" "Yes." "And you didn't think I deserved to know I had a son?" The careful control in his voice barely contained the hurt beneath. Olivia set down her cup, the china making a sharp sound against the saucer. "You made your priorities very clear, Gabriel. Your company was expanding globally. You were working 20-hour days, canceling every plan we made. The last time I saw you, you told me, and I quote, 'I can't do this right now, Liv. There's too much at stake.' I meant the argument, not our entire relationship." Gabriel ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "I came back to our apartment the next day with flowers, an apology, and you were gone. No note, no forwarding address, nothing. I hired investigators, Olivia. I filed a missing person report. I left a letter with your assistant," she said, surprise coloring her voice. Gabriel's expression darkened. "Miranda? She never gave me any letter. She promised she'd—" Olivia stopped, a cold realization washing over her. Miranda, who had made her disdain for Olivia clear from day one. Miranda, who had always believed Gabriel needed someone from his own social circle, not a scholarship student with D reams of building sustainable housing. "She told me you received it," Olivia said quietly, "that you read it and said it was for the best." Gabriel's face went still. "Miranda was dismissed 6 months after you disappeared. Turns out she was filtering more than just my personal correspondence." Silence settled between them as they absorbed this revelation, a simple betrayal that had altered the course of 3 lives. "The letter," Gabriel said finally. "What did it say?" Olivia looked away. "That I couldn't be second place in your life anymore. That I was leaving to start fresh. That she hesitated. "That I would always love you, but I needed to find someone who would put me first." "And the pregnancy? Was that in your letter?" "No, she admitted, shame coloring her cheeks. I found out a week after I left. I tried calling your private line twice, but it had been disconnected. I changed all my numbers after a security breach, he said, the pieces falling into place. Olivia, if I had known, would it have made a difference? She challenged. You were building an empire, Gabriel. 18-hour days, international flights every week. Would you really have given that up for 3 a.m. feedings and diaper changes? Before he could answer, Leo's laughter rang out from the corner, drawing both their gazes. He was showing Mrs. Harlow how his spoon could balance on his nose, chocolate smeared across his cheek. He has your laugh, Gabriel said softly, and your nose. But those eyes are yours, Olivia finished. Along with his curiosity and his stubbornness, Gabriel's smile was bittersweet. Does he know anything about me? More than you might think, she admitted. I couldn't bring myself to erase you completely. I kept photos, newspaper clippings about your company's success. Sometimes when he asks about his father, I tell him stories, that you're brilliant and kind, that you're building technology to help people. The treasure box he mentioned? Olivia nodded. It has the photographs, some letters I wrote but never sent, a few mementos from our time together. But you never tried to contact me again, Gabriel said, his voice tight, even after he was born. By then, your face was on the cover of business magazines. You'd become this legendary tech visionary, climbing higher every year. What was I supposed to do? Show up at your corporate headquarters with a baby and disrupt the life you clearly wanted? You didn't give me the chance to choose, Gabriel said, leaning forward intently. You decided for both of us. The accusation hung in the air between them, weighted with years of consequence. Life can change in an instant. A chance encounter, a child's innocent words, and suddenly years of separation and misunderstanding come crashing down. If this story resonates with you, like and subscribe to hear more about families finding their way back together through unexpected circumstances. Sometimes the truth we fear most is exactly what we need to hear. Mama, I'm sleepy. Leo's voice broke the tension as he appeared at Olivia's elbow, rubbing his eyes. Mrs. Harlow followed close behind, apology written on her kind face. I'm sorry, dear. He insisted on coming to you. It's all right, Olivia assured her, gathering Leo onto her lap. It's past his bedtime anyway. Gabriel watched them with undisguised longing. Would it be all right if I helped somehow? Called you a car, perhaps? The awkwardness of his offer, this man who commanded a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, reduced to hesitant uncertainty by his own child, made Olivia's heart twist. Actually, she said before she could reconsider, we live just a few blocks away. If you'd like, you could walk with us. It would give you a few more minutes with him. The hope that illuminated Gabriel's face was answer enough. The night air was cool against Olivia's heated skin as they walked, Leo dozing against her shoulder. Gabriel had insisted on carrying her portfolio case and briefcase, leaving her arms free for their son. Mrs. Harlow had tactfully taken a separate cab home, sensing the need for privacy. What happened with your investors? Gabriel asked, breaking the companionable silence that had settled between them. Olivia winced. I'm not sure. After Leo's announcement, Mr. Kensington suggested we reschedule. I think the spectacle was a bit much for them. Walter Kensington, of Kensington Partners? You know him? Gabriel's laugh was short. He tried to acquire a controlling interest in my company during our first expansion. Not exactly a man I'd trust with something you care about. Olivia sighed. At this point, my options are limited. Most investors aren't interested in small architectural firms focused on affordable, sustainable housing. Gabriel was quiet for a moment, thoughtful. What if I could help? Not as, he gestured vaguely between them, whatever we are to each, other now, but as someone who believes in sustainable innovation. Gabriel, I don't want charity. It's not charity to invest in good ideas, Olivia. It's business. From what I glimpsed in your portfolio, your designs are revolutionary. The modular approach to low-income housing with integrated green spaces? That's exactly the kind of forward thinking we need. They had reached her building, a converted warehouse with soaring windows and exposed brick. Olivia hesitated at the entrance, studying Gabriel's face in the streetlight. This is us, she said softly. Gabriel nodded, reluctantly handing back her bags. Olivia, there's so much more to say. So much to figure out. I know. I want to be part of his life, he said, his gaze moving to the sleeping child in her arms. If you'll let me. The vulnerability in his voice, so at odds with the confident CEO the world knew, reminded her of the man she'd fallen in love with years ago, before the company, before the ambition had consumed him. "We can talk tomorrow," she offered. "I'll make coffee. Leo has preschool until noon. I'll clear my schedule," Gabriel promised immediately. Then, more hesitantly, would it be inappropriate to ask if I could kiss him goodnight?" Olivia's throat tightened with unexpected emotion. "Of course not." Gabriel stepped closer, gently brushing a curl from Leo's forehead before pressing a feather-light kiss to his temple. The tenderness of the gesture brought tears to Olivia's eyes. "He's perfect," Gabriel whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "Thank you for that, at least." Olivia could only nod, not trusting herself to speak. "Tomorrow, then," Gabriel said, reluctantly stepping back. 10 o'clock? 10 o'clock, she confirmed. 5 years earlier, Olivia Reed had been a different woman entirely. At 24, she'd been finishing her master's in sustainable architecture, passionate about changing urban landscapes with eco-friendly, affordable designs. Her scholarship barely covered essentials, so she'd taken a part-time job at a downtown coffee shop near the university. That's where she first saw him. Gabriel Davenport recently returned to the city to launch his tech startup. Not yet the Billionaire CEO, but already magnetic. He came in every morning at precisely 7:15, ordered the same black coffee, and worked intensely on his laptop until 9. "You're wearing out that table," she'd finally commented one morning, refilling his cup unasked. 3 hours every day this week." He'd looked up, surprised by her directness. "Am I that predictable?" Like clockwork, she'd confirmed with a smile. "Though you tip well enough that we don't mind. I'm working on something important," he'd explained, then hesitated before turning his laptop toward her. "A platform that connects sustainable technology with communities that need it most." Olivia had studied the screen, genuinely interested. "Like matching solar companies with rural villages?" "Exactly." Gabriel had seemed pleased by her quick understanding. "Technology exists to solve these problems, but distribution and implementation are fragmented. I'm building a solution." "Noble mission for a coffee shop squatter," she'd teased. His laugh had surprised both of them, rich and unguarded. "I have an office, just prefer the energy here. I'm Gabriel, by the way." "Olivia. And just so you know, we close early on Fridays." "Good to know," he'd replied, holding her gaze a moment longer than necessary. "I'll adjust my squatting schedule accordingly." 3 days later, he'd asked her to dinner. 2 weeks after that, they were inseparable. In those early days, they'd been perfectly balanced, his pragmatic business sense complementing her idealistic creativity. They'd spend hours talking about changing the world, sketching visions on coffee shop napkins. Gabriel understood her passion for sustainable housing in a way no one else had. She appreciated his drive to connect resources with needs. "We make a good team," he'd told her one night, 6 months into their relationship, as they lay tangled together in his modest apartment. "You see the human element I sometimes miss. I see the practical paths to your visionary ideas." "Is that your romantic way of saying we should move in together?" Olivia had asked, propping herself up on one elbow. Gabriel had smiled, tracing her cheek with gentle fingers. "It's my way of saying I love you, Liv. The moving in together is just logistics." For almost 2 years, they'd flourished. Olivia finished her degree with honors. Gabriel's company, Prism Innovations, secured its first major funding. They moved into a larger apartment, adopted a cat, talked abstractly about marriage and children someday when things settled down. But things never settled. Prism grew exponentially, demanding more of Gabriel's time, attention, and energy. 18-hour workdays became normal. Weekends disappeared into emergency meetings and investment pitches. Olivia supported him initially, understanding the critical growth phase of his company. "It's temporary," he'd assure her, kissing her goodbye at 5 a.m. "Once we secure this round of funding, things will calm down." But each achievement only led to greater demands. As Gabriel pursued increasingly ambitious goals, Olivia found herself alone more often. Their relationship reduced to brief interactions between his meetings and her deadlines. The breaking point came gradually, then suddenly. Olivia had been offered a position with a prestigious architectural firm known for sustainable urban development, her dream opportunity. The celebration dinner she planned was interrupted 3 times by Gabriel's calls with investors. When he finally suggested cutting the evening short because of an early meeting, something in Olivia snapped. "Do you even want to be here, Gabriel?" she'd asked, hurt bleeding into anger. Because it seems like your mind is always somewhere else these days. That's not fair, he'd responded defensively. You know how crucial this phase is for Prism. We're expanding globally now. The stakes are enormous. And what about the stakes for us? Olivia had countered. When was the last time we had a conversation that didn't revolve around your company? When did we stop being partners and become two people who occasionally occupy the same space? The argument had escalated, years of unspoken frustrations pouring out from both sides. Gabriel accused her of not understanding the pressures he faced. Olivia accused him of forgetting what mattered beyond business success. I can't do this right now, Liv, he'd finally said, rubbing his temples. There's too much at stake. Those words, intended to pause an argument until cooler heads prevailed, became the breaking point Olivia couldn't move past. The next day, while Gabriel was at work, she packed her essentials and left. Her parting letter, entrusted to Miranda, never reached its intended recipient. A week later, in a small hotel room paid for with her meager savings, Olivia stared at the positive pregnancy test with equal parts terror and wonder. 2 calls to Gabriel's private line went unanswered. When she finally worked up the courage to contact his office directly, Miranda informed her coolly that Mr. Davenport has made his position clear and would prefer no further contact. Devastated and believing Gabriel had rejected both her and the possibility of reconciliation, Olivia made the hardest decision of her life, to raise their child alone, away from a father who had chosen ambition over family. What she couldn't have known was that Gabriel had returned to their apartment the very evening after their fight, flowers in hand and apology prepared, only to find her gone. Or that in the weeks that followed, while Olivia believed he had dismissed her letter without response, Gabriel had been frantically searching for her, hiring private investigators and filing missing person reports. By the time Miranda's deception was discovered and she was dismissed, Olivia had relocated to another part of the city, changed her phone number, and begun building a new life centered around her pregnancy and fledgling freelance design work. Gabriel's searches yielded nothing. Eventually, heartbroken, and assuming Olivia had simply wanted a complete break, he had poured himself, even more completely, into his work, the only area of his life where he still felt some control. For 4 years, they had lived separate lives in the same city, connected only by a child one didn't know existed, and the other raised with carefully edited stories of his absent father. Until tonight, when fate and a curious 4-year-old shattered the barriers between past and present. Gabriel arrived at precisely 10 the next morning, carrying a small, carefully wrapped package and, looking both powerful and uncertain in casual clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His hesitation at her threshold spoke volumes. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. "Leo's room is down the hall if you'd like to see it. He's covered the walls with drawings of robots and spaceships." "He likes robots?" Gabriel asked, following her inside, his gaze taking in the warm, modest apartment with evident curiosity. "Loves them, builds them out of anything he can find. Cardboard boxes, my kitchen utensils, once even my good drafting rulers." Gabriel smiled. "I built my first circuit board when I was 5. My mother was horrified when I disassembled our telephone to understand how it worked." "That explains a lot," Olivia said, leading him toward the kitchen. "Coffee?" "Please." She busied herself with the French press, aware of Gabriel's eyes following her movements. The silence between them felt charged with unspoken words. "Olivia," he began finally, setting the small package on the counter. "Before we discuss anything else, I need to apologize." She turned, surprised. "For what?" "For giving you reason to believe I wouldn't want our child. For being so consumed with Prism that you felt invisible. That was never my intention, but intentions don't matter if the result is someone you love feeling abandoned." The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't the defensive reaction she'd expected. The Gabriel she remembered would have built a logical case for his actions, explained the necessity of his choices. "You've changed," she observed, pouring the coffee into mugs. "Having everything you thought you wanted and realizing it's hollow without someone to share it with changes a person," he replied simply. "Losing you was the wake-up call I needed, though it took longer than it should have to recognize that." "And now?" she asked, sliding his coffee across the counter. "What do you want now, Gabriel?" "To know my son," he answered without hesitation. "To be the father he deserves, however that looks. And," he paused, meeting her eyes, "to understand if there's any part of what we had that could be rebuilt. Not immediately, not without work, but someday." Olivia's hands tightened around her mug. We're different people now. Yes, he agreed. But different doesn't mean incompatible. You've created a successful firm while raising our child alone. That speaks to a strength and determination I always admired in you. And I've learned that empire building means nothing if you're ruling alone. Before she could respond, he slid the small package toward her. This is for Leo. Though perhaps you should approve it first. Sometimes the gifts we treasure most are the ones that arrive unexpectedly after years of waiting. If you've ever experienced a moment of reconnection that changed everything, hit like and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might give someone else the courage to reach out to a loved one they've lost touch with. Olivia unwrapped the package carefully, revealing a small handcrafted wooden robot. It wasn't a commercial toy, but something clearly custom-made, with movable joints and a tiny control panel with working lights. It's beautiful, she said, turning it in her hands. Did you make this? Gabriel nodded. Last night. I have a workshop at home. It helps me think. I stayed up most of the night working on it, wanting to get it right. The image of Gabriel, who once couldn't tear himself away from spreadsheets long enough for dinner, spending hours crafting a toy for the son he'd just discovered, sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. He'll love it, she said softly. There's something else, Gabriel said, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew a folded document and placed it on the counter. I had my lawyers draw this up this morning. It's a proposed custody and support agreement. Very preliminary, very flexible. I don't expect you to sign anything now, or ever if the terms don't feel right. But I wanted you to know I'm serious about being in Leo's life legally, financially, and emotionally. Olivia stared at the document, emotions warring within her. This is very thorough for less than 24 hours. I've always been efficient, he said with a small smile. But please, take all the time you need to review it with your own attorney. I've included provisions for Leo's education, healthcare, housing security for both of you, and structured visitation that can evolve as he becomes comfortable with me. And if I were to accept your help with my firm? She asked cautiously. That's entirely separate, Gabriel insisted. My legal team has drawn up a standard venture capital agreement for your review. Your work stands on its own merits, Olivia. That has nothing to do with Leo or our past. She studied him, trying to reconcile this thoughtful, measured man with the driven entrepreneur whose ambition had once consumed everything in its path. What changed you, Gabriel? Really? He considered her question carefully. About 2 years after you left, I achieved everything I thought I wanted. Prism went public. The valuation exceeded even our most optimistic projections, and I became the success story everyone expected. That night, I opened a bottle of ridiculously expensive champagne in my empty penthouse and realized I had no one to share it with. No one who cared about Gabriel the person rather than Davenport the CEO. He took a sip of his coffee before continuing. I started therapy the next week, spent a lot of time understanding why I'd been willing to sacrifice what mattered most for achievements that felt hollow once attained. It's been a process, learning to balance ambition with the things that make life meaningful. And you think you've found that balance now? She asked skeptically. I'm working on it, he admitted. I delegate more. I've built systems that don't require my constant attention. I take actual weekends off. The company hasn't collapsed yet. His lips quirked in a self-deprecating smile. I'm still learning, but I'm committed to doing better. Olivia felt the last of her defensive walls beginning to crumble. She'd spent 4 years constructing a narrative about Gabriel, the workaholic who would have resented the intrusion of a child, who would have seen fatherhood as an inconvenience to his ambitions. Seeing him now, earnest and vulnerable in her kitchen, forced her to confront the possibility that she'd been wrong. We should take this slowly, she said finally, for Leo's sake. He's excited about meeting his daddy from the pictures, but he doesn't understand what that really means yet. I agree completely, Gabriel said, relief evident in his voice. We follow his lead, introduce changes gradually. I don't want to disrupt the beautiful life you've built for him. And us? She asked, the question slipping out before she could reconsider. Gabriel's gaze softened. That's entirely up to you, Olivia. I won't pretend I don't still have feelings for you. Seeing you last night brought everything rushing back. But I understand that trust takes time to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all. Friends first, she suggested. Keo parents learning to work together. The rest, we'll see. I'd like that, he said, and the genuine smile that lit his face reminded her of the Gabriel she'd fallen in love with, before the pressure and ambition had shadowed his eyes. The sound of her phone chiming broke the moment. That's preschool, she said, checking the message. Leo has a fever. I need to pick him up. May I come with you? Gabriel asked, then quickly added, or is that too much too soon? Olivia considered him thoughtfully. Actually, I think it might be good. A quiet introduction rather than another public scene. The gratitude in his eyes was answer enough. The preschool was a bright, cheerful building with a playground visible through large windows. Gabriel seemed almost nervous as they approached the entrance, adjusting his sweater and running a hand through his hair. Do I look approachable? He asked suddenly. I've been told my boardroom face can be intimidating. Olivia couldn't help but smile at the question. You look fine. Just be yourself, the real yourself, not CEO yourself. Right, he nodded seriously. No hostile takeovers of the finger-painting station. His attempt at humor surprised a laugh out of her. This glimpse of the old Gabriel, the one who could always make her laugh even when she was determined to stay angry, sent a pang of nostalgia through her chest. Inside, they were directed to the nurse's office, where Leo sat on a small cot. His cheeks flushed with fever, but his eyes brightening instantly when he spotted them. Mama and Daddy from the restaurant, he exclaimed, sliding off the cot and hurrying toward them despite the teacher's gentle admonishment to rest. Gabriel knelt down, bringing himself to Leo's level. Hello, Leo. I hear you're not feeling well today. Leo nodded solemnly. My ears hurt again, and I'm all hot. I'm sorry to hear that, Gabriel said, his voice softening in a way Olivia had never heard before. When I was your age, I used to get ear infections too. They're no fun at all. You did? Leo asked, his eyes wide with the discovery of this connection. Absolutely. My mother used to make me special smoothies with frozen berries because the cold helped my throat feel better when it hurt from all the medicine. Can we make smoothies, Mama? Leo turned to Olivia hopefully. That sounds like a good idea, she agreed, signing the release forms the teacher offered. Let's get you home first, though. I have a surprise for you at your house, Gabriel told Leo as they prepared to leave. Something I made last night when I found out what a special boy you are. Leo's eyes lit up despite his fever. A surprise? What is it? If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore, Gabriel replied with exaggerated seriousness. But I think you'll like it very much. As they walked out together, Leo reached up and took Gabriel's hand without hesitation, his other hand firmly in Olivia's grasp. The simple action, their son naturally connecting them into a unit, felt profound in ways Olivia couldn't articulate. Gabriel's eyes met hers over Leo's head, and the wonder and gratitude she saw there mirrored her own emotions. Whatever complications lay ahead, whatever hurts needed healing, this moment felt like the beginning of something new and unexpectedly hopeful. Back at the apartment, Leo's excitement over the wooden robot temporarily overshadowed his discomfort. His eyes widened with delight as Gabriel demonstrated how the joints moved and the small lights worked. You made this? Just for me? He asked, turning the toy over in his small hands with reverent care. Just for you, Gabriel confirmed. I wanted to give you something special, like how you're special to me, Leo asked with childish directness that made both adults catch their breath. Gabriel's voice grew gentle. Yes, exactly like that. Leo studied the robot for another moment before looking up with fever-bright eyes. Are you going to stay now, with me and Mama? The question hung in the air between them, innocent yet impossibly complex. Olivia felt her heart racing as she waited for Gabriel's response. Leo, sweetie, she began, trying to manage expectations, but Gabriel raised a hand, asking silently for a chance to answer. I'm going to be in your life from now on, he told Leo carefully. I promise you that. But grown-up arrangements can be complicated. Right now, I have my home, and you and your mom have yours. The important thing is that I'll see you very often, and we'll figure everything else out as we go along. Leo considered this, his small brow furrowed in concentration. But why can't you just live here? We have a guest room. That's a conversation for another day, Olivia interjected gently. Right now, you need medicine and rest. How about we make those smoothies Gabriel mentioned, and then you can show him your room? Leo agreed reluctantly, though his eyes kept drifting back to Gabriel as if afraid he might disappear if not watched carefully. The fear wasn't entirely unfounded, Olivia realized. For all Leo's excitement at meeting his father, there must be underlying questions about why he'd been absent for so long. Those questions would come eventually, requiring careful, age-appropriate answers. For now, though, the simple joy of connection seemed enough for her son. In the kitchen, Gabriel proved surprisingly adept at navigating unfamiliar territory, finding blender, and measuring cups without needing direction. Olivia watched with quiet amazement as he and Leo worked together to create magic healing smoothies. The business-like efficiency she remembered now channeled into making their son smile. "You're good with him," she observed softly, while Leo carefully arranged berries in the blender. Gabriel glanced up, a mixture of pride and sadness in his eyes. "I had a lot of catching up to do." "We all do," she acknowledged. "This is new territory for everyone." The afternoon passed in a strange bubble of domesticity. Leo, fortified by medicine and smoothies, insisted on giving Gabriel a tour of the apartment, proudly showing off his robot collection, his bookshelf, and especially his drawings. "This one's a spaceship that runs on sunshine," he explained, holding up a colorful creation. "And this is a robot that helps trees grow faster. It's for helping the planet." "That's brilliant," Gabriel said, examining the drawing with genuine interest. "You know, at Prism we're actually working on solar technology that helps vegetation grow in difficult environments." "Really?" Leo's eyes widened. "Just like my drawing?" "Very similar," Gabriel confirmed. Great minds think alike. When Leo finally succumbed to his fever and fell asleep clutching his new wooden robot, Olivia and Gabriel retreated to the living room, the silence between them filled with unspoken thoughts. "He's extraordinary," Gabriel said finally. "So bright, so intuitive." "He gets that from you," Olivia replied, then smiled faintly. "Along with his stubbornness. I prefer to call it determination," Gabriel countered with a slight smile that faded quickly. "Olivia, I need to ask, has he had proper medical care for these ear infections? They can lead to complications if not treated aggressively." The question stung, though she recognized the concern behind it. "Of course he has. I may not have your resources, but Leo has never gone without necessary medical care. He sees Dr. Chen every 6 weeks for monitoring. The infections are improving just slowly." "I'm sorry," Gabriel said immediately. "I didn't mean to imply otherwise. I just want to protect him," Olivia finished. "I understand. That's what parents do." "Parents," Gabriel repeated the word softly, testing its weight. "I'm still getting used to that." "You're doing well so far," she acknowledged. "Better than I expected, honestly." "What did you expect?" Olivia considered the question carefully. "Part of me feared you'd be angry, demand legal proceedings immediately. Another part wondered if you'd be uncomfortable, unsure how to connect with a child. The man I knew 5 years ago wasn't exactly comfortable with messy emotions or unstructured time." "The man you knew 5 years ago needed to grow up," Gabriel said simply. "I've had time to recognize that." Before Olivia could respond, her phone chimed with an incoming email. She glanced at it, then sat up straighter. "It's from Kensington Partners." "And?" Gabriel asked, watching her face. "They're passing on my proposal. Apparently recent events raised concerns about my personal stability and professional focus." The bitterness in her voice was impossible to disguise. "In other words, being a single mother who can't control her child in a restaurant makes me a bad investment risk." "Walter Kensington is an ass," Gabriel said flatly. "And a hypocrite, considering his own very public divorce scandals. Maybe, but he's an ass with capital I need." Olivia set her phone down with a sigh. Back to square one. Gabriel hesitated, clearly weighing his next words carefully. "My offer still stands, you know, to invest in your firm, strictly as a business proposition. I told you, I don't want charity, I know," Gabriel finished for her. "And I'm not offering charity. I'm offering a business partnership with someone whose vision aligns with Prism's sustainability goals. Can you honestly say you'd make the same offer if I were just another architect you met at a conference?" Olivia challenged. "If you showed me the same innovative designs, absolutely." Gabriel's gaze was steady. "The difference is, I might not have looked as closely at your portfolio if we didn't have history. But now that I have seen your work, I recognize its value independent of our personal connection." Olivia still hesitated, pride warring with practicality. "Look," Gabriel continued, "review the investment proposal with your own lawyer. The terms are standard, possibly even less favorable than you'd get elsewhere too. Avoid any appearance of special treatment. If you don't like it, reject it. But don't punish yourself professionally just to maintain independence from me personally." His logic was sound, much as she hated to admit it. Her firm needed capital to grow, and her designs deserved the chance to become reality. "I'll think about it," she conceded finally. "But only if the terms make business sense. That's all I ask." Gabriel seemed to understand that pushing further would be counterproductive. He glanced at his watch. I should probably go. Let Leo rest, give you some space to process everything. Will you come back tomorrow? The question escaped before Olivia could reconsider. If you want me to, Gabriel replied, hope evident in his voice. Leo would like that, she said, then added more honestly, and it would give us more time to figure out next steps. As they walked to the door, an awkward moment arose, neither quite certain how to say goodbye. A handshake seemed too formal, a hug too intimate for their current state of cautious reconstruction. In the end, Gabriel simply said, "Thank you, Olivia. For today. For Leo. For being willing to try." "We're just starting," she reminded him, but found herself smiling nonetheless. "There's a lot to work through. One day at a time," he agreed. "I'll see you tomorrow." After he left, Olivia checked on Leo, still sleeping peacefully with the wooden robot clutched to his chest. Watching him, she marveled at children's capacity for adaptation. In the space of 24 hours, his world had expanded dramatically, and he had embraced the change with open-hearted enthusiasm. If only adults could navigate life's upheavals with such straightforward acceptance. What happens when the walls we build to protect ourselves suddenly come down? When truth forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew? If you've experienced a moment when your perspective completely shifted, share your story in the comments. And subscribe to hear more stories about the unexpected ways families find healing and connection. Over the following weeks, a tentative routine emerged. Gabriel visited Leo regularly, initially for short periods that gradually extended as their bond strengthened. He proved surprisingly adept at 4-year-old activities, building elaborate block structures, creating imaginary worlds with action figures, and reading stories with different voices for each character. To Olivia's surprise, he maintained professional boundaries regarding her firm, introducing her to legitimate investors without pressuring her to accept his own offer. "The choice has to be entirely yours," he explained. "No strings, no obligations." 6 weeks after their restaurant reunion, Olivia sat on a park bench watching Gabriel push Leo on the swings. Their son's laughter rang out with each arc higher, his earlier ear infection finally resolved and his energy fully restored. "Higher, Daddy, higher," Leo called, and Gabriel obliged carefully, his attention completely focused on ensuring the child's safety while maximizing his joy. Observing them together, Olivia could no longer deny the truth she'd been avoiding. Gabriel was a natural father, patient, attentive, fully present in a way he'd never been during their relationship. The transformation was both wonderful and painful to witness. Wonderful for Leo, painful in its reminder of what might have been if Gabriel had found this balance years earlier. "Penny for your thoughts," Gabriel said, joining her on the bench while Leo explored the sandbox nearby. "You looked miles away." "Just thinking about changes," she admitted. "How different things are from what I expected." "Good different or bad different?" "Mostly good," she said honestly. "Leo adores you. You're wonderful with him. More natural than I would have predicted." Gabriel's smile was wistful. "Children have a way of clarifying priorities. Every time I look at him, I think about the kind of world I want to build for him, the kind of example I want to set. It makes decisions simpler in some ways, and more complicated in others," Olivia added. "True," he acknowledged. "Speaking of complications, I've been considering something I wanted to discuss with you. My lease is up next month, and I've been looking at properties closer to you and Leo. There's a townhouse about 4 blocks from your apartment." "You'd move from your penthouse?" Olivia asked, surprised. "What about your view? Your private elevator? That ridiculous infinity pool you showed Leo in the photos?" Gabriel shrugged. "What good is an infinity pool when the person I most want to teach to swim lives across town? The commute to Prism would be longer, but I only go to the office 3 days a week now anyway. The rest I can work remotely." The casualness with which he suggested this significant life change took Olivia aback. "You're serious about this?" "I'm serious about being present for Leo," he confirmed. "And," he added more hesitantly, "about being available if you decide there's something worth rebuilding between us." They had carefully avoided this topic during their co-parenting negotiations, focusing solely on Leo's needs and comfort. But the underlying current had remained, surfacing in lingering glances and conversations that extended long after Leo was asleep. "Gabriel," she began, uncertain how to respond. "You don't need to say anything now," he assured her. "I just wanted you to know where I stand. These weeks with you and Leo have been the happiest I've had in years. I won't pressure you, but I won't pretend I haven't fallen in love with our family, the one we could be if you're willing to try again." Before she could respond, Leo came running up, hands cupped carefully around something. "Look what I found, a special rock with sparkles inside." The moment shifted as they both turned their attention to their son's discovery, a piece of quartz catching the sunlight. But Gabriel's words echoed in Olivia's mind throughout the afternoon, through dinner at her apartment, through the bedtime routine they now often shared. Later, after Leo was asleep and Gabriel prepared to leave, she finally found her voice. "I'm afraid," she admitted, standing in her doorway, "afraid of trusting again, of believing things can be different this time." Gabriel nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Fear makes sense given our history. I broke promises before. Words alone can't repair that, only consistent actions over time. And if we try and it doesn't work," she pressed. "Leo is attached to you now. I won't put him through losing his father twice. He won't lose me," Gabriel said firmly. "Whatever happens between us, I'm committed to being Leo's father for life. That's non-negotiable." Olivia studied his face, searching for the ambition that had once consumed him, the restlessness that had made him check his phone during their most intimate moments. Instead, she found steady resolve and patient hope. "The townhouse," she said finally, "the one 4 blocks away. Is it big enough for weekend visits? For Leo to have his own room there?" "Yes," Gabriel said carefully. "I made sure of that." Olivia took a deep breath. "I think that's a good next step. Being closer, creating more stability for Leo, seeing if this new balance you found is sustainable." The smile that spread across Gabriel's face was worth the risk of her cautious approval. "I won't let either of you down again," he promised. "I've learned what matters." As he turned to leave, Olivia made a split-second decision. She reached for his hand, stopping him. "I still have the letters," she said softly, "the ones I wrote but never sent after I left. If you want to understand what those years were like for me, what I was thinking and feeling, they might help." Gabriel's expression filled with tender gratitude. "I'd be honored to read them, whenever you're ready to share them." She nodded, suddenly certain of her decision. "Come to dinner tomorrow night. After Leo's asleep, we can talk. Really talk about everything we've been avoiding." "I'll be here," he promised, squeezing her hand gently before releasing it. As she watched him walk away, Olivia felt something unfurling in her chest, not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of it. The chance to rewrite their story, not as a failed romance, but as a journey. Interrupted, now resuming with wisdom, earned through separation and loss. The following evening unfolded with surprising ease. They prepared dinner together while Leo chattered about his day at preschool, the domestic scene feeling both novel and strangely familiar. After Leo was tucked in, Olivia retrieved the wooden box from her closet and brought it to the living room where Gabriel waited. "My treasure box," she explained, setting it between them on the couch. "Leo found it once when he was 3. That's how he knew your face yesterday. From these." She opened the lid, revealing a collection of photographs, handwritten letters, and small mementos. Gabriel reached in carefully, as if handling priceless artifacts, and lifted out a photo of them from years ago. His arm around her shoulders as they stood in front of the First Prism office, both beaming with youth and possibility. "I remember this day," he said softly. "We just secured our first round of funding. You brought champagne in paper cups because we couldn't afford real glasses. And we danced in that empty office with no furniture," Olivia added, the memory washing over her. "You promised we'd change the world together." Gabriel set the photo down gently. "I meant it then. I just lost sight of the together part somewhere along the way." Olivia nodded, withdrawing a bundle of letters tied with a simple ribbon. "These are what I wrote during my pregnancy in Leo's first year, when I was angry, when I was scared, when I wished you were there to see him smile for the first time." Gabriel accepted them with visible emotion. "Thank you for keeping these, for not erasing me completely from your life, even when you had every reason to." "I couldn't," she admitted. "Not just for Leo's sake, but for my own. What we had was real, Gabriel. It mattered, even when it hurt." They spent hours that night, poring through the contents of the box, photographs triggering memories, ticket, stubs from concerts reminding them of who they'd been before success and separation had changed them. The letters remained unopened, a private reading Gabriel would do later. As midnight approached, they found themselves sitting closer, the box now, empty between them, but something new filling the space it had occupied. "I can't change the past," Gabriel said, his voice low and intent. "I can't give you back those years or erase the pain of raising our son alone. But I can promise you this, if you give us, Another chance I will spend every day making sure you never doubt your place in my priorities again. Forgiveness isn't always a single moment of release. Sometimes it's a journey of small steps, each one bringing us closer to healing. If you've experienced the power of second chances in your own life, hit that like button. Your story of reconciliation might inspire someone else to take that first difficult step toward healing. Gabriel moved into the townhouse 4 blocks from Olivia's apartment in early October. The transition created a gentle rhythm to their lives, Leo spending 3 days a week with his father, while Olivia focused on her firm, which had secured proper funding through one of Gabriel's industry connections who saw genuine merit in her innovative designs. The custody arrangement remained informal initially, built on trust rather than legal mandates. Both agreed that Leo's comfort and security took precedence over rigid schedules or territorial boundaries. To Leo's delight, his room at Gabriel's townhouse mirrored many elements from his primary bedroom. Similar bedding, the same arrangement of stuffed animals, even a matching bookshelf. So you always feel at home, Gabriel had explained, no matter which home you're in. One rainy November afternoon, Olivia arrived early to pick up Leo from his father's house. Gabriel answered the door with a finger to his lips. "He fell asleep during our robot building marathon," he whispered, gesturing toward the living room where Leo was curled up on the couch, surrounded by cardboard, tape, and markers. "I didn't have the heart to wake him." "I can come back later," Olivia offered, but Gabriel shook his head. "Stay. Have tea." I was just about to make some. The kitchen in Gabriel's townhouse was warm and inviting, nothing like the sleek, barely used space in his former penthouse. Evidence of actual cooking peppered the counters, and children's artwork decorated the refrigerator. "You've gone fully domestic," Olivia observed, accepting the steaming cup he offered. "And loving every minute," he admitted without embarrassment. "Though I still can't manage that macaroni and cheese Leo insists only you can make properly." "Trade secret," she smiled. "Add a little mustard powder." Ah, the missing ingredient. Gabriel leaned against the counter, his own tea cradled between his hands. "I have something to show you, if you have a minute." Curious, Olivia followed him to his home office, a sunlit room with views of the small courtyard garden. Unlike the intimidating corporate space she remembered from years ago, this room balanced professionalism with personal touches. Leo's drawings framed alongside business awards, family photos interspersed with industry publications. Gabriel opened a drawer and removed a familiar bundle of letters, now unbound and carefully arranged in chronological order. Olivia's letters, the ones she'd written but never sent during pregnancy and Leo's first year. "You read them," she said softly. "Every word, multiple times." His voice was rough with emotion. "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "They're mostly angry rants and sleep-deprived rambling." "For documenting everything," Gabriel clarified. "For creating this record of his first years. Without these, I would have nothing. No details about his birth, his first smile, his first steps. You gave me back pieces of our son's life I thought were lost to me forever." Olivia hadn't considered the letters that way, as a gift rather than an accusation. The perspective shift caught her off guard. "There's one in particular," Gabriel continued, selecting a letter from the middle of the stack. "May I?" At her nod, he began reading aloud. "Leo took his first steps today, exactly 9 months old. 3 wobbly steps from the coffee table to the couch where I was sitting. His face showed such determination, that focused expression so like yours when you're solving a problem. For a moment, I almost called you, almost reached for the phone to share this milestone. Then I remembered that's not an option anymore. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, keeping him from you. When he accomplishes something new, when he laughs in a way that echoes your laugh, when he studies objects with that intense curiosity you always had, I question my decision. But then I remember how completely your work consumed you, how our relationship became secondary to your ambition, and I tell myself I'm protecting him from inevitable disappointment. Still, there are moments when I wish things had been different. When I wish you could see the extraordinary person our son is becoming, when I wish we could share the wonder of him together." Gabriel's voice had grown increasingly unsteady as he read. When he finished, he carefully returned the letter to its place among the others. "I've been trying to make up for lost time," he said quietly. "But reading these made me realize fully what I missed, what my choices cost us all." "We both made choices," Olivia acknowledged. "Mine weren't all right either." The admission hung between them, a shared culpability that somehow eased the burden each had carried alone. He's still becoming that extraordinary person, Gabriel said. And now we get to witness it together, even if differently than we might have imagined. Olivia nodded, unexpectedly moved by his perspective. Different, but not lesser. Exactly. Gabriel hesitated, then added, Speaking of different, but not lesser, Leo asked me something this morning that I wasn't sure how to answer. What was that? He wanted to know if you and I are going to get married like his friend. Tyler's parents did after they started living in separate houses. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. What did you tell him? That grown-up relationships are complicated, but that we care about each other very much and both love him more than anything. That was a good answer, she said softly. It was truthful, Gabriel replied, his gaze steady on hers. I do care about you, Olivia. More than I have allowed myself to acknowledge until recently. The confession hung in the air between them, neither advancing nor retreating from its implications. I care about you too, Olivia admitted finally, but I'm still scared of repeating old patterns. Then we create new ones, Gabriel suggested, starting with honesty. I want more than co-parenting with you, Olivia. I want partnership in all its forms, but only if and when you're ready. Before she could respond, they heard the patter of small feet in the hallway. Leo appeared in the doorway, hair tousled from his nap, clutching the wooden robot Gabriel had made him. Mama, you're here early. His sleepy face brightened instantly. Can we all have dinner together? Daddy bought ingredients for tacos. Olivia glanced at Gabriel, who merely smiled, leaving the decision entirely to her. The absence of pressure, the space to choose freely, touched her deeply. Tacos sound perfect, she told Leo, then met Gabriel's gaze with new certainty. I'd love to stay for dinner. It was a small step, but significant, another piece in the bridge they were carefully constructing between past and future. As December arrived, bringing holiday decorations and school performances, their carefully separated lives began to intertwine more naturally. Family dinners happened several times a week, not just on custody transition days. Weekend outings involved all three of them more often than not. Leo's preschool teachers began addressing notes to both parents rather than just Olivia. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, they were becoming a family. Different from traditional models perhaps, but a family nonetheless. The Saturday before Christmas found them at the annual holiday market, Leo racing between festive stalls while his parents followed at a more measured pace, sharing a paper cup of mulled cider. I have something for you, Gabriel said suddenly. An early Christmas gift. We said no gifts between us, Olivia reminded him of their agreement to focus present giving on Leo. This is different, Gabriel assured her, reaching into his coat pocket. Not really a gift, more of a return. He handed her a small envelope. Curious, Olivia opened it to find a folded sheet of paper, creased and slightly faded. As she unfolded it, recognition dawned, her handwriting, her words, dated 5 years earlier. My letter, she whispered. The one I left with Miranda. Gabriel nodded. It was in a file of handled personal matters in her desk. The company found it during an audit after her dismissal, but by then you'd disappeared completely. I've kept it all these years. Olivia stared at the letter, emotions swirling as she reread her own desperate words. Gabriel, I can't do this anymore, being second place in your life, watching you choose work over us time and again. I need someone who sees me, who prioritizes our relationship. I've tried to be patient, to understand the demands of building Prism, but I've reached my limit. I'm leaving to start fresh, to find the partnership I've always believed possible. Despite everything, I will always love you, but I need to love myself enough to walk away. Goodbye, Olivia. I never saw this until months after you left, Gabriel said quietly. By then, the investigators had found no trace of you. You'd changed your number, moved apartments. I thought you wanted a complete break. And I thought you'd received it and chosen not to respond, Olivia replied. The final piece of their miscommunication falling into place. So when I discovered the pregnancy weeks later, you assumed I wouldn't want to know, Gabriel finished. Based on my silence after receiving this letter, a silence that never actually happened, Olivia said, the irony of their situation striking her fully. We lost 5 years because of one person's interference. Not entirely, Gabriel corrected gently. Miranda's deception created the initial break, but my workaholic tendencies, my inability to balance ambition with relationship, those drove you to write this letter in the first place. I bear responsibility for that. His willingness to acknowledge his part without defensiveness touched Olivia deeply. The man standing before her now was so different from the driven entrepreneur who had once prioritized his company above all else. More self-aware, more balanced, more capable of true partnership. "We've both grown," she acknowledged, carefully refolding the letter. "Maybe we needed that time apart to become people who could be together in a healthier way." Gabriel's eyes widened slightly at her words. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying I'm ready to explore what might be possible between us now," Olivia clarified. "Not rushing, not forgetting the past, but not letting it dictate our future either." The hope that illuminated Gabriel's face was answer enough, but before he could respond, Leo came bounding back to them, cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. "Mama, Daddy, I found the perfect tree. Come see." He tugged at their hands, pulling them toward the Christmas tree section of the market. As they followed their enthusiastic son, Gabriel's fingers tentatively intertwined with Olivia's. She didn't pull away, instead tightening her grip slightly. A small gesture of trust, of possibility, of healing beginning to take root. Life isn't always about perfect timing, but sometimes about second chances that arrive when we're finally ready to embrace them. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more tales of family, forgiveness, and finding your way back to what matters most. Your engagement helps us share these stories with others who might need them. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold, sunlight glinting off fresh snow that had fallen overnight. By mutual agreement, they had decided to spend the holiday at Gabriel's townhouse, its larger living room better, accommodating the 8-foot tree Leo had insisted upon, its guest room providing comfortable space for Olivia. Leo woke them at dawn, bursting with excitement that couldn't be contained a moment longer. Still in pajamas, they gathered around the tree while Leo distributed presents, with the serious concentration of a child entrusted with an important task. "This one's for you, Mama, and this one's for you, Daddy. And this one says to Mom and Dad, and it's from me." The joint gift, a handmade picture frame containing a preschool photo of the three of them at the Thanksgiving celebration, brought tears to Olivia's eyes. The casual Mom and Dad label, the natural grouping of them as a unit, reflected how completely Leo had embraced their evolving family structure. Gabriel's gifts to Leo were thoughtfully chosen: books about robots, a junior science kit, clothes that accommodated his growing independence. Nothing excessive or extravagant, respecting Olivia's wishes that they not overwhelm him with material things. Olivia had given Gabriel a vintage blueprint of Prism's first office building, carefully preserved and professionally framed, a reminder of where they began. His gratitude was evident in the careful way he handled it, the emotion in his eyes as he traced the outlines of the space where they had once danced with paper cups of champagne. When the present opening concluded, Gabriel disappeared briefly into his study, returning with a small box that hadn't been under the tree. "One more," he said, handing it to Olivia. Not a Christmas gift exactly, more of a question. Intrigued, she opened it to find a key nestled on velvet. "It's to the front door," Gabriel explained. "I thought, that is, if you wanted. It might be convenient for you to have your own key, for Leo's sake, of course." The careful casualness of his tone couldn't disguise the significance of the gesture. Not quite moving in together, but a step toward greater integration of their lives. "For Leo's sake," Olivia repeated with a small smile, recognizing the excuse for what it was. "Of course, and maybe sometimes," Gabriel continued, encouraged by her acceptance, "on evenings when we're all tired, or the weather's bad. Or it just makes sense logistically. Maybe you might want to use the guest room instead of going back to your apartment?" Leo, overhearing this exchange, looked up from his new toys with sudden interest. "Like a sleepover? Mama could have sleepovers here?" "Something like that," Gabriel agreed, his eyes never leaving Olivia's face. "I think that could be arranged," she said softly. "For practical reasons." "Purely practical," Gabriel echoed, though his smile suggested otherwise. The remainder of the day passed in comfortable domesticity, building, Leo's new toys, preparing Christmas dinner together, video calling, with Gabriel's parents who were cautiously delighted by their newly discovered grandson and the tentative reconciliation with Olivia. That evening, after Leo had finally succumbed to holiday exhaustion and fallen asleep surrounded by new treasures, Olivia and Gabriel sat before the fireplace, glasses of wine in hand, the Christmas tree lights casting colorful shadows across the room. "I've been thinking," Olivia said, after a comfortable silence, "about my apartment lease." Gabriel looked up, careful not to appear too eager. "Oh, it's up for renewal in February. I've been considering whether to extend it." "And have you decided?" His voice was deliberately neutral, though his fingers tightened slightly around his wine glass. Olivia took a deep breath. I think it might make sense to explore alternatives. For Leo's stability, moving between two homes, keeping clothes and toys in different places, it's manageable but not ideal. What kind of alternatives did you have in mind? Gabriel asked, setting his glass down to give her his full attention. Maybe a trial period, she suggested. Using that key you gave me more regularly, seeing how we function together in one household, taking things slowly, but moving in a deliberate direction. Together, Gabriel clarified, his eyes searching hers. As a family, Olivia confirmed, though I'd want to maintain some independence, keep my studio space, preserve certain boundaries while we figure things out. Absolutely, he agreed immediately. We could convert the third bedroom into a proper workspace for you, and I'd respect whatever boundaries you need. We don't have to rush anything. His immediate accommodation of her needs, the absence of pressure to conform to traditional arrangements, reassured Olivia that this Gabriel truly was different from the one she'd left years ago. Then yes, she said with growing certainty. Let's try living together. For Leo's sake initially, but also for us, for the partnership we might build if given the chance. Gabriel's smile was radiant. For all of us, he agreed, reaching for her hand across the space between them. As their fingers intertwined, Olivia felt the last of her resistance melting away. The path forward wasn't perfectly clear, wouldn't always be smooth, but the fundamental elements were in place. Trust rebuilding, communication improving, priorities aligned. Merry Christmas, Gabriel, she said softly. Merry Christmas, Olivia, he replied, his voice warm with promise. The first of many, I hope. 3 months later, spring sunshine streamed through the windows of what was now undeniably their home. Olivia's apartment had been sublet, her essential belongings integrated into the townhouse, her architectural studio established in the converted third bedroom. The transition hadn't been without challenges. Gabriel's occasional late work calls interrupted family dinners. Olivia's independent habits sometimes clashed with his desire for togetherness. They navigated differences in parenting styles, household management, and personal space needs. But underlying these normal adjustments was a foundation stronger than their first attempt at partnership, built on maturity, mutual respect, and the shared priority of their son's happiness. Leo thrived in the stability of their united household, his ear infections finally resolving completely under a specialist's care, his creativity blossoming in an environment where both parents encouraged his interests. At preschool graduation, he proudly introduced my mom and dad to teachers and classmates without qualification or explanation. On a warm Saturday in May, while Leo played with neighborhood friends in the courtyard garden visible from the kitchen window, Gabriel approached Olivia as she sketched designs for a new sustainable housing project. I've been meaning to ask you something, he began, uncharacteristically hesitant. Olivia looked up from her drafting table, pencil still poised over the paper. Do you remember what you said that night at the restaurant, when I asked if Leo was my son? Olivia set down her pencil, giving him her full attention. I believe I said, not here, and then please. That's right, Gabriel nodded. And I've been thinking about those words lately, how they could apply to another question entirely. What question might that be? Olivia asked, though something in his expression gave her an inkling of where this conversation was heading. Instead of answering directly, Gabriel reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. I was going to plan something elaborate, romantic dinner, spectacular view, the works. But then I realized that's the old Gabriel's approach, making grand gestures instead of focusing on what matters. He opened the box to reveal a ring unlike any Olivia would have expected. Not a flashy diamond solitaire, but an elegant band of intertwined gold and platinum, set with small stones in a pattern that caught the light. The stones are birthstones, Gabriel explained. Yours, mine, and Leo's woven together, just like our lives have become. Olivia's breath caught as she recognized the thoughtfulness behind the design. Gabriel, I'm not asking for an immediate answer, he assured her quickly. And whatever you decide won't change my commitment to you and Leo. We can continue exactly as we are if that's what you prefer. But you are asking? Olivia sought confirmation, her heart racing. I am, Gabriel confirmed, dropping to one knee in a gesture both traditional and transformed by their unique journey. Olivia Reed, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife? Not because it's expected or conventional, but because I love you more fully, more completely, more authentically than I ever knew was possible. Olivia looked from the ring to the man before her, the man who had changed so profoundly. who had proven his commitment through consistent action rather than empty promises. The man who had become not just a father to their son, but a true partner to her. "Not here," she said softly, echoing her words from that fateful night. Gabriel's face fell slightly before he caught the teasing light in her eyes. "Not just here in the studio, I mean," Olivia clarified, reaching for his hand. "This moment deserves Leo too. He's as much a part of this decision as either of us." Understanding dawned in Gabriel's expression. "You're right. Of course you're right." Together they moved to the garden door, calling Leo in from his play. The boy came running, curious about the interruption to his Saturday fun. "Leo," Gabriel began, kneeling again to be at his son's level. "I have something important to ask your mother, and we wanted you to be part of it." Leo's eyes widened as he spotted the ring box. "Are you asking Mama to marry you, like in the movies?" "I am," Gabriel confirmed. "How would you feel about that?" Leo considered the question with endearing seriousness. "Would we still all live together?" "Yes," Olivia assured him. "Just like now, but even more official. And would I get to be in the wedding? Tyler got to hold the rings when his parents got married. You'd have the most important job of all," Gabriel promised. "If your mom says yes, that is." All eyes turned to Olivia, who looked at the two people who had become her entire world, the son she'd raised alone for 4 years, and the man who had returned to them both, transformed by loss into someone capable of true partnership. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, to all of it." As Gabriel slipped the ring onto her finger, Leo clapped his hands with delight. "Now we're a real family." "We already were, buddy," Gabriel corrected gently, pulling both Olivia and Leo into an embrace. "The ring and the wedding just help other people recognize what we already know." Holding her family close, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment, the miscommunications and missed connections, the years of separation, the chance encounter in a restaurant that had changed everything. What had seemed like the most mortifying moment of her life had actually been the beginning of its greatest chapter. "I love you," she whispered to Gabriel. "Both the man you were and the man you've become." "And I love you," he replied, "for your strength, your forgiveness, and for giving me the greatest gift imaginable, the chance to be a father to our son and a partner to you." Leo, squirming slightly in the extended emotional moment, looked up at his parents with satisfaction. "I knew you were my daddy," he declared with a child's certainty. "Even before I saw you at the restaurant, I just knew." Perhaps he had, Olivia thought. Perhaps children recognize essential truths that adults overcomplicate with fears and doubts. Perhaps Leo had simply seen what had taken her longer to recognize, that some bonds, once formed, never truly break. They simply wait for the right moment to be rediscovered, stronger for having been tested, more precious for having been lost and found again. Sometimes the most embarrassing moments become the gateway to our greatest blessings. A child's innocent words, a chance encounter, a truth finally revealed. These can change the course of our lives in ways we never imagined. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about family, forgiveness, and the unexpected ways love finds its way back to us. Until next time, I'm Dr. Phillips, reminding you that it's never too late for a new beginning.